Hey guys, Forever Retro 82 here. This video has been a long time coming. This is going to be a two-part series of arcade games that I enjoyed in my youth. I'm not going to show an entire bunch of them, but we're going to show some, and I'm going to explain, just the relevance they had to me and how I thought about them, like my opinion, and we'll go from there. But, you know, I have to go ahead and hold up my beverage here. If you have one, go for it. And I have to give praise and tribute to the failing co-op community that is barely hanging on by a thread. You are a big part of my childhood, and I will always keep you in my mind, memory, and heart, and love you. So, cheers to the arcades. Alright, now with that out of the way, um, the first arcade memory that I have that I can recall is I had to have been at least 3 or 4 years old. And we went to this. It was okay. It was weird. It was like a flea market, and it was like a house, like a long house, long and a little bit wide. It was. It wasn't very big, but it was big enough to have a market inside. See, my mom was a big budget shopper. She loved to go to flea markets and resale shops, garage sales. Anywhere she can get a bargain, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as the whatever you're getting works and it's not like caked in dog shit or whatever the fuck. Because I know there are people out there that don't take care of their clothes and they're like stained with chocolate and then they want to resell it for like 25 cents or something. And I guess that's fine if you know how to get chocolate out, but that's besides the point. Anyways, out after we went to the flea market, Mom did her shopping for us and herself and my father and this and that and the other thing because that's what moms/wives do, I guess. I don't know. But outside, there was a hallway between the entrance of the building and the flea market itself. There was a little hallway, and there was 2 arcade games there. My brother and sister were all over Burger Time because that was the first one. I mean, these were right across from each other. Here was my game, and here was their game. Okay, and the first game, I had the unfortunate memory of playing is this son of a bitch. Let's shrink that down because it was supposed to be smaller than that. Ah. Alright. This motherfucker. Okay, now, a lot of you are like, what's the matter with RBI Baseball? I played that on the NES. It was a great game. The NES version was a great game. The arcade version was not. And I'll tell you why. I need a drink. Okay, I don't know if it was just the version I played, because I played it on MAME years later before I deleted that game forever, because I don't want no part of it. Okay, RBI Baseball on the NES was a great game. It was fun. It was fun, but it was very simple and slow, but it was fun. It had its moments. It had its enjoyment. The arcade one, on the other hand, not only was the computer absolutely balls to the wall cheap as fuck, if you were like 2 or 3 points behind the computer within the 3rd or 4th inning, the game would end. I am not shitting you. I wish I had the game on hand to prove that to you, but I don't. Unless there is something, I don't know, or an option. I looked at the dip switches and I didn't see any kind of option indicating that would fix the problem. Or it could have been the version I had. If you guys know of a version that doesn't do that kind of bullshit to you, let me know, because I have been unable to find one. That game can suck my fucking dick until I'm blue in the face. Until my balls are empty. Until I see, I don't know, God or whatever. Fuck this game. Fuck it to hell. Yeah, I've played it for about 5 minutes. 5 fucking minutes. Then my game was over. Because the computer was 5 points ahead of me. I got 2 home runs. I understood the game because I used to watch baseball on television when I was younger. Not because I was cheering for any games or anything. I just found it to be interesting. Two other sports I used to watch, believe it or not, on TV was golf and bowling. It was ASMR to me. Like, it was very calming. Very, like, you know, for the same reasons that people watch, like, say, Bob Ross, you know, his old shows and stuff where he would paint things in this calming nature. That's what golf and bowling was to me then. Anyways, I don't watch any of that now. But yeah, fuck RBI baseball. That game can eat a dick. It can fuck off, and it pissed me off. I tried my very best to enjoy the game for what it was trying to do and for what it was. But at the same time, after 2 or 3 innings, the computer just whoops your fucking ass and you're done. You have no chance. You can't play a full game without an ending because it just automatically, oh, you're never going to catch up. You're 2 points behind. You're done. Game over. I swear to God. That game. Okay. So that was not a good start to arcade games. You know, Burger Time, on the other hand, was something better. You know, in Burger Time, you just ran around and you got food, you know, fucking chasing you. And you got to go over buns. You got to basically make hamburgers the size of Buicks. You know, for all them fat asses out there, they're like, ooh, hamburgers all the time, yummy. Fuck hamburgers. Except in the summertime. I mean, to me, that's perfect time. I love going out and grill and making hamburgers. I don't make too much of them. I only make like 2 of them a piece for wife and I. Unless I got friends over. Last year, how many did I fucking make last year? 8? That was for me, wife, Rob, kids, and his girlfriend. I don't remember. God damn it. Anyways, that's besides the point. Fuck hamburgers. That game used to make me hate hamburgers. So yeah, that was RBI. Not a good start, but you know, there's a few places I used to go to for my arcade fix. Michigan people, do you remember Major Magics? Sorry, I'm just getting my e-cig ready for usage. I'm gonna change the battery, but I'm still gonna talk. Do you guys remember Major Magics? Alright, it was similar to Chuck E. Cheese at the time. They had animatronics that sang, you know, and this may show a little bit of nostalgia for you, but this was Major Magics. The All-Star Pizza Venue. Now, this place didn't just operate in Michigan. It also operated in Ohio, I believe, as well. And there could be other states, too. Please feel free to let me know in the comments. That's what it's there for, to correct me and to fill me with knowledge. If you can give me the knowledge I request, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, Major Magics. Really awesome. They had good. I liked their pizza. Their pizza was excellent. And they also had a big arcade with just filled with such greatness. In fact, one of my first experiences with another game that I have a problem with. What the fuck? Get out of here. Another game I had a problem with. Now, a lot of people consider this a classic. I don't consider it a classic for lots of reasons. Okay? First of all, the original arcade machine. This is Street Fighter. Okay, you may notice some Japanese writing because this is the only one I was able to find of a picture of the original machine. Now, you may notice those 2 little poundy pads there. Okay? The reason for those was the harder you press down on those pound pads, the harder the attack. And there's 3 attacks per button. So the lightest is your light, medium is your medium, and your hardest is fierce on both kick and punch. Not only that, the fucking fighting system and controls in place were garbage. It wasn't until you released the pound mesh there that you would attack. I mean, what game does that? When you press the button, it's supposed to attack. But in the original Street Fighter, when they let go of the fucking button, then it does the attack. I mean, I didn't like this game for quite a few reasons. First of all, the fucking play controls are just, other than the moves itself, it plays like shit. The computer is cheap, and if you can do the special moves, You know, they do a shit ton of damage. They do a lot of damage to the point where you can beat the computer in 2 hits. But that's only if you can pull it off. The only time I can pull off a fireball in this game is if I hold the button down and keep pressing the motion for fireballs. You know, down the forward on a joystick. If I hold it down and I keep doing this, it looks like I'm jerking myself off, you know, then eventually I'll pull off a fireball. And you hear this because the fucking voices are really bad in game. And then Capcom knew they fucked up. They knew they fucked up with this system. You want to know why? I'll give you a reason why. Because later on, a couple years later or a year later, somewhere around that time period, I don't know exactly from the top of my head, but they released a revised version. They released a revised version. What does that say? 6 buttons. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, this photo I have here, obviously it's been gutted. But you see how there's 6 buttons? That's how they knew they fucked up. I understand, no game company is perfect, but come on. This was an era when you press a button on an arcade machine, it's supposed to do an action. Not when you let go of the button. What if every game operated like that? How would you feel? You'd probably be like, dude, this fucking sucks. And it does. So not a very good game. I just want to get those 2 shitters out of the way before I bring in the good games. Or the games that myself or my brother or my friends would play and enjoy during the youth of my arcade experience. So we'll definitely get into that. Okay, now that we got the bad games out of the way, let's go into the good games. Or the games that I enjoyed, my brother and I enjoyed, you know, to the fullest extent. And one game that I really enjoyed that was, you know, I believe it was pre-Golden Axe era. Or pre-Golden Axe. Golden Axe was okay in the arcade. I preferred the Genesis game. But a game I plunked definitely a lot of quarters in and tried to get far in was this little gem. This is Rastan. It's a game with that horrible game over screen in my game over video that I posted. It's the one with the sword and the skulls and the flames and the howling screaming sound, which I kind of depicted the people that have died in those piles of skulls were in hell. I mean, it really fucked with my head as a kid. Because when you're a kid, you don't understand certain imagery that you're exposed to, or you try to live the experiences you see in imagery, which is always told that's a no-no. Anyways, Rastan was a very fantastic game in my opinion. You were a barbarian and you go from left to right, hack and slash and shit with some really kick-ass tunes, and it made you feel like you were actually going on an epic adventure of sorts. And unfortunately, it's one of those games also too that you get far into it and you have to use continue. Your game's automatically over. A lot of games have done this. Rygar, the arcade version, which I was not really a big fan of. Shinobi. But you know, speaking of Shinobi, my uncle, shit, I can't think of his name. I want to say Uncle Dave. He used to play in a bowling league, and they had an arcade at the bowling league. They had a lot of Sega games up there too. They had Altered Beast. If you want to see Altered Beast, just look it up, the playthrough on my channel, the Genesis version, which is pretty much the same. The arcade one's a little bit different, but my brother played that one. The one I played was Shinobi. This game. Shinobi was really fun too. You know, you played as a Ninja Joe Musashi, and you go through levels, saving hostages and fighting bosses and going through different levels with some... I mean, come on, if you're a classic gamer, if you don't know Shinobi, get your ass on MAME or somewhere where you can play this game and enjoy it. But I will warn you, the arcade game is hella difficult. That game also has the problem where if you get to, I think it's one of the final stages within the game, it just ends. It gives you game over. It doesn't matter how many quarters you put in. It doesn't matter how many times you've played it. It doesn't matter how many times, how many things you do. It doesn't matter. It's all skill. And that game gets brutally hard really quick because that's the point of arcade games. But my question is why'd they do that? If you're willing to plunk in quarters to give money to that machine to finish the game, why cut you out like that so you can put in more quarters and get that far again just to die and get a game over again? I mean, come on. It's kind of, counterintuitive, don't you think? I mean, that's my opinion.
Mission 1 finished. Welcome to bonus.
So I was playing the shit out of that at the bowling alley. My favorite things I would have to say is, the special stages, the and the overall gameplay style. It was a platformer and a action game. It was a lot of fun, and for the time period, I mean, this was acceptable, and some consider it a classic, myself included. I love the Shinobi franchise up until the 3DS game. Now I don't even care about it. The PS2 version was pretty bad too, in my opinion. But that is what it is. I mean, to me, it felt like a poor man's Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox. I mean, that's probably a little too harsh, but that's my opinion. Take it as you will. But I fucking love Shinobi, and I love the hell out of Rastan. And it really disappointed me when I found out Rastan was only, at least on consoles, the only system to get it was the Sega Master System. I didn't have a Master System growing up. I have the power-based converter now, so I could get it and play it, but the game goes for a stupidly high amount of prices. They ever start making multi-carts like they have for the NES and SNES for Master System, and I don't know about it, please let me know, because I'm not against the emulation ROM scene. Just let me know. I'll grab that motherfucker, and I'll play it on my power-based converter. That'd be awesome. I loved Rastan on the Master System. The only part I didn't like about it, no continues. At least not that I can see, unless there's a cheat code that I'm not aware of. Okay, the next game we're going to touch base on is a game we saw at Major Magics shortly after those two games that I showed you. And it was around 1990, I want to say. And they had it, both my brother and my mouth, our mouth just dropped at the sheer awesomeness that this showed. Kids of the 80s. Kids of the early 90s, you should know what this is. You can see it right on the screen. And some of you that are maybe even younger than that actually got to play this on, I think it was the Xbox Live Arcade had this for a little while. This is one of Konami's finest beat-em-ups of all time, to this day. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. There was two kinds of cabinets. There was the Deluxe and Simple. The Simple was 2-player. The Deluxe was 4. I honestly think they should have never been a 2-player model unless maybe the operator, was strapped for cash and they wanted to have the Turtles experience in their arcade. That's probably why they made that. But I'm sorry, the only way to play this game is the 4-player, because you can go to any fucking joystick and pick who you want to play and fucking your favorite turtle and beat the shit out of foot soldiers. I mean, that's great. That's what we wanted. We wanted a simple game where we could just go around beating up foot soldiers and listening to kick-ass Ninja Turtles music, and of course Konami's greatness of making sound composition. Because, back then, that's when Konami was at their prime. They made these wonderful arcade games that were just great to play. I mean, sorry, I have the belchies now. Beer does it every time. I've said that for years. As soon as you put your hand on that joystick and you start pounding those fucking buttons and beating ass, it's a great time. You can't beat that. And, and if I see this arcade game today, which unfortunately I don't, but if I did around where I lived and I knew where to find it, my ass would go up there and plunk about $5 worth of quarters and beat the shit out of it. It takes me about $5 to beat the game. So I suggest anyone that is a fan of beat-em-ups to play this game in any way necessary. It is a fantastic game. Me and my brother were watching kids play it, and they were just having a blast, and when they walked away, it was our turn, and when we finally got to actually play it, my brother played his favorite turtle, Leonardo, and I played my favorite Michelangelo. We had a blast. I mean, we almost spent our $10 worth of quarters on just that game alone. But we didn't, because there are still other games in the arcade that we want to play. But none of them hold the memory or the enchantment that this beautiful game holds dearly to me, and I'm pretty sure thousands of other gamers that were enjoying the arcade scene during that time frame. TMNT and its sequel, Turtles in Time. Now, unfortunately, I never played Turtles in Time in the arcade. I know, shoot me. My first experience was the SNES title, which was really good. In fact, I prefer the SNES version over the arcade, because I finally played the arcade version, when I was 23? Is that accurate? 23 or 24? Yeah, it was around that time frame, I remember. We used to go to this arcade called the Butterfly, which is no more. It was in 13 in Van Dyke, in Warren, Michigan. I think that was Sterling Heights, or considered Sterling Heights. I don't. Sorry, my brain's not. It's never in the right place. Anyways, got two more games to cover here before we go ahead and wrap this up, before we end up going to part 2. Like I said, I could talk about games all day when it comes to arcade games, but I just wanted the ones that I have the most fond memories of during my youth. And another game that my brother and I used to play the piss out of at the Tri-County Flea Market. They had it there all the time, at least for a couple years before it was finally sold off. But that game was this, Rabbit Punch. Now, Rabbit Punch was a game where you could simply just, you were rabbits and you shot shit, and it was a shooter. But me and my brother really liked it. We thought it was a lot of fun, and we just played the piss out of it every time we went up there. We never beat it, because the game had a system that if you got far in the game, like far into the, I want to say it was like the final stage or the stage before the final, when you died, when you continued, you'd start back the level before. But it was only later in the game. And that kind of system just pissed me off. But it was smart, too, if you think about it. You got those zealous motherfuckers out there that want to beat every game they touch. They're going to sit there and plunk quarters all day until they finally get it right. Now, I don't have that kind of patience, or even as a kid. I'm like, fuck this, I'll just play the home port. Stupid me didn't realize there was never a home port that I can remember. Now, if there is a home port for, like, say, the Commodore or the Amiga, I was not aware of this because I didn't have one growing up. Nor did I know, well, I did know somebody when I was a yay little boy that I hung out twice before they moved to fucking Algonac, Michigan, that had a Commodore, but I don't think he had that. No, he didn't have that. So, the only one I was familiar with was the Japanese version on the TurboGrafx 16, which it was called something different. It was called Rapido or Rapido. You know what? I don't. Lepus. Please tell me in the comments. El Stupido. Right. But that was a really fun game. Me and my brother just would go in there like every time, like every weekend. We'd go up there with my mother and my dad. They would go around eating their fat asses with elephant ears and caramel corn and shit, and look and get some clothes and stuff. Me and my brother would spend all the time in the arcade, and we had a good time. You know, we plunk quarters in and just have a blast. We sometimes get $5-10 tops, and we just play the games. Now and we just play, like I said. All right, let's do one more game here that I'm going to discuss and talk about. It's a beat 'em up that I remember playing. Now, as most people knew, I worked at Big Lots. It was a convenience store that I worked at for a long time because no other jobs were hiring, and I wasn't, I guess, compatible or didn't have the experience needed to work at other places. It's not that I didn't try. Places, just the Michigan economy at the time period was a shit, so I had to stick with what I had and just go with it. And if I can get side jobs to go with that, more money the better. But when I was a kid, when that store was in its infancy, they had one arcade game, and it was the first time I played it, and it was brand new at the time. And that's this. Yeah. The first Final Fight that was in the arcade was there. This is when I first played it. My brother and I plunked some quarters in it, and we were in love with it immediately. It had that that badass look. Like it felt like one of those games that you played that, but you weren't supposed to play. You know, like adults look at you and they're just like, the fuck, what are you playing this? This doesn't look like something you should be playing. It was like it was that feeling, right? But it was fine. There was no blood, no nudity. I mean, you got the under tit shot from fucking Foxy and Roxy, which oh, hey, who doesn't like tits, right? Tits are everyone loves tits. You played as Guy, Cody, and Hagar. You're in the Mad City, and basically you gotta save Hagar's daughter, damsel in distress 101. Except this time it's your daughter, Hagar's daughter, and I believe it's Cody's girlfriend. And that's pretty much it with Final Fight. I mean, it's very simple beat 'em up. Really fun to play. Got 2 players, just beating ass, and the game should have been 3 players, but whatever. It's only 2 from memory. I mean, this cabinet pretty much. But the thing about this cabinet I find weird is it actually has 6 buttons and not 3. His game had no, it was only punch and kick. Maybe it's a MAME cabinet. Who knows? I just tried to find pictures to show you guys what the cabinets look like, at least from my experiences. I mean, it seems like on the side, the game was something completely different. So yeah, or maybe not. I don't. No, I can see the Final Fight logo. Okay. I don't know. But yeah, we used to play the fuck out of this game for like 2 weeks because my mom liked to go there for deals, as always. And when you go somewhere for deals, you want to fucking go and look some more. And well, my mom would find what she would be looking for, and then we would leave. But it saddens me to say about 3 weeks after that we used to go up there and play that game with the $2 we were allowed to play, because sometimes it was in the middle of the week and funds were tight within the family. The arcade cabinet was gone. And then I found out through reading through video game magazines during that time frame that Nintendo was coming out with a new system. It was called the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Favorite system of all time next to the NES and the Genesis. I call them the Golden Trio because those 3 systems, they're majestic and great in every way. Like I said, I wish I could have made this video longer, but I don't want it to go longer than it needs to be. I just wanted to show you some of the games that stick out in my memory that I can remember like yesterday. I mean, there's some runner-ups up there, like and I'll take the time to talk about them. I won't show any footage, obviously, but I'm just going to talk about them. One game that some of you may or may not be aware of, Pit Fighter. Remember that game? That game was one of those games that you also played, and it was one of those games that you felt like you should be playing because it was just too violent, too realistic, and it kind of blew my mind, like the graphics. I'm like, wow, this is the way we're going in video game technology. And then here I am older, and games look like photorealistic, and I'm not all impressed. This goes to show you it's all about gameplay. Another game was Vigilante. I showed that game for the TurboGrafx 16, and I failed miserably at it because the game is a dirty horror, and it's also very cheap. Made by Irem, who also made Kung Fu Master. In some ways, it's kind of like a spiritual sequel. Better graphics, obviously, better sound design, not simplistic. But Kung Fu Master will always have a special place in my heart, especially in the NES version. That's just called Kung Fu. And another game I want to mention is Magic Sword. I really played that a lot at the Little Caesars Pizzeria down the street from me. But that's going to be part of my next video, the later years, where I was no longer, a little tyke. I was actually growing up some. I was past the age of 10. And that's where the next games are going to come into play. So, with part 2 coming up, you'll see more games, more cabinets, more arcade talk. But in closing, for being a little kid, I loved arcade games, and they were a lot of fun. And obviously, graphics in home consoles and computers beat the shit out of arcade games now. I mean, back then, arcade games was the definitive way to play a game because the games looked so fucking good. It looked better than anything else on the market at the time. And there were some games that did pretty fucking well, I have to say. But not enough to make some of us graphic horrors at the time period, froth at the mouth. There were ports of arcade games that were released in Japan, but we never got them here. Like Pac-Land, I never really cared for that game. It's okay. I have it on my virtual console on the Wii for the TurboGrafx. And you know, I finally got a chance to play it like play it more than you know this a couple times through throwing in a couple quarters. Not that impressive of a game, at least I have to say. Pac-Land was also released for the Famicom, and some people like it because it was loosely based off the cartoon at the time, made by Hanna-Barbera. And you know, that's about it really. So this is the end of part one. Part two, we're gonna get into some other games, and if you're interested in seeing those and hearing what I have to say about them, I hope you stick around for it. But until then, have you guys a great rest of your day. Keep loving, keep gaming, keep it retro. And if you guys have a significant other, give her something for Valentine's Day, and that bitch better give you something too. And you know what I mean by something, right? Anyways, you guys take good care of yourselves. I'll see you on the next one, and stay tuned for part two. Take care.